Award and is also the first IIT agent in the Northeastern region. Passionate about sustainability, Ms. Fukun's platform called Cognac has worked towards promoting artisans and weavers of the region with its signature Out of Northeast India curated collection since 2008. In 2014, Janvi also set up her own looms next to her wildlife lodge, the Diplu River Lodge in Kaziranga. She has been conferred the Doctorate of Letters, honoris causa in 2018, in recognition of her outstanding work and contribution in ecotourism and efforts for women's causes. She is also a member of the National Board of the Indian Institute of Entrepreneurship, which is now under the Ministry of Entrepreneurship and Skill Development. With this, I hand over to Janvi. Please do inaugurate the session.
Thank you very much, Rinku. Namaste from India. Thank you very much for joining us today on this virtual platform. And on behalf of FLOW, the women's wing of FICCI, and the 17th Pan-India chapter that I represent as the national president, it is my privilege and pleasure to have you with us. We are indeed honored to have with us His Excellency Sandeep Kumar, Ambassador of India to Ireland, and His Excellency Brendan Ward, Ambassador of Ireland in India. Your Excellencies, thank you for your time and this opportunity. India and Ireland share very strong bilateral relations. Both our countries fought a common adversary, and there are many ties between the independent movements in the two countries. Many of our provisions in the Constitution of India were drawn from the Irish counterparts in the Constitution of Ireland. The Indian Constitution's of state policy have been inspired by the Constitution of Ireland. Indo-Irish relations were also strengthened by people like Jawaharlal Nehru, Rabindranath Tagore, W.B. Yeats, James Joyce, Sister Nivedita, Annie Besant. Annie Besant was the first female president of the Indian National Congress and an early and strong advocate of Indian independence and born to Irish parents. Sister Nivedita, born as Margaret Noble in Dungannon in Northern Ireland, was an educator, writer, thinker, and Indian nationalist. Sister Nivedita moved to India to join Swami Vivekananda's Vedanta movement. She toured India and Europe to promote the education of girls and support the Indian independence movement. And our mutual recognition of bilateral ties was in 1947 upon Indian independence, while diplomatic exchanges opened later. India had established an embassy in Ireland in 1951, and to mark the occasion, the same year at Irish President Eamon de Valera's insistence, the Indian President, Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, had visited your country. I read a riveting post on Facebook by the Embassy of Ireland in India on 25th Jan 2020. It read that Ireland has a reason to celebrate India's Republic Day, and Ambassador Ward was quoted as saying that with the two-way traffic trade now exceeding 4 billion euros per annum, our countries are serious partners. The trade ties between the two countries continue to grow, and based on our long-standing relationship, from mutually supporting independence groups, the Indo-Irish connections will continue flourishing in the coming years. Both our countries have worked towards accelerating women participation in the process of economic development by promoting entrepreneurship and professional excellence. Today, women constitute 50.39% in Ireland, 49% in India. And according to the MasterCard survey, women make up 20.1% of the countries, of your country's entrepreneurs in India. That figure stands at 14% of entrepreneurs. So this women's entrepreneurship is an area that needs specific people. And that is the purpose of having this conclave, to take this forward and how we and our vision of W7 can go forward. So we are delighted to have our Network Ireland as our partner to take this collaboration further. Both our countries have that membership. that includes a very diverse group of women, from budding entrepreneurs, SME owners, professionals, and leaders in indigenous and multinational organizations, in nonprofits to nonprofits, to charities, arts, and the public sector. And it is a huge and happy coincidence that both Flow and Network Ireland began a journey in 1983 together. And for 37 years, Flow has worked at the three levels for women's empowerment and entrepreneurship at grassroots level, urban, and the corporate. And my mission this year has been to work towards sustainable practices and sustainable livelihoods for women's economic upliftment. So in our part in the country, we've tried to work on a three-pronged initiative for the last 1 year. And we call that the Flow 3 Cs, working on competency, capacity, and confidence building for women. At the grassroots, we took on the village adoption program. At the urban sectors, we took on the Adopt an ITI program. The ITIs are the Indian government-sponsored schools, which are industrial training institutes. So on this, we have tried to work through our bandwidth of 17 chapters across the country. Skills Development Corporation, and where we've reached out to vast numbers of women to launch online skill development programs and help them with their entrepreneurship aspirations. India is one of the largest markets with over 600 million internet users. We are second only to China. So we are seeing a new phenomenon of homepreneurs in urban and semi-urban India. Besides the various verticals that we work on, today we are here to talk about collaboration we started last year, and we look to take this forward. This is when we have want to specifically work on the trade between our countries. So over the years, Flow has worked with other international women's organizations to promote B2B collaborations and sharing of best practices. This year, what we call W7 for Women of 7 Regions is our hope, our vision to create that worldwide forum for the exchange of information, experience, visibility, and connectivity, specifically for trade among women business owners, setting the stage for new opportunities and joint ventures among women entrepreneurs and business leaders. To date, we have had very significant consultations and roundtable discussions on this format already with Myanmar, with Netherlands, Vietnam, and Chile. And today we are working with Ireland and hope to take the collaboration further. So these are the key objectives will be to talk to each other, to get B2B participation, members of your country and ours, and take this dialogue forward. So as a token of our appreciation and gratitude, we have virtual mementos for our ambassadors and for all our speakers. So I will request Vicky IT to please show it on the screen for us, our virtual mementos. Thank you. Yes. I'm afraid they're not in the correct sequence. Would you please forgive me for it? It is a virtual and it's directed at both the ambassadors and all our esteemed speakers. I do hope we got them all covered. Okay, so thank you for that. And now may I, Rinku, shall we start with the first question or what is your format today?
Yes.
Begin with the first.
Thank you, Janabi.
Go on.
Yes, I think thank you, Janvi, for that very comprehensive introduction of what Flow does and why we're here today. It is now my privilege to introduce His Excellency Sandeep Kumar, the Ambassador of India to Ireland. Mr. Kumar joined the Indian Foreign Service on 20th August 1985. He has served in various missions abroad in Croatia, Hong Kong, Hanoi, Paris, Cape Town, and Kabul. From September 2008 to January 2013, he was on deputation to UNDP in Kabul, where he worked on policy reforms. From Feb 2013 to August 2015, he served as Joint Secretary in the West Asia and North Africa, the WANA division of the Indian Ministry of External Affairs. August 15 to October 2018 saw him serve as Ambassador of India to the Republic of Croatia, and he is currently Ambassador of India to Ireland since November 2018. Mr. Kumar holds educational degrees in MPhil in Environment and Development from the University of Cambridge, MSc in Security Studies from the University of Madras in India, LLB from Delhi University, India, and BA Honours in English Literature from Delhi University as well. A multilingualist, he speaks English, Hindi, Chinese, French, and German. He has a passion for the arts, travel, and sport. He's also written a non-fictional account of his experience in Afghanistan called The On Edge. Please join me in welcoming the Ambassador, His Excellency Sandeep Kumar. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. And Pokan, that was a very interesting and very encouraging speech that you made. I would start with acknowledging the presence of Ambassador Brendan Ward, who's a colleague and friend and who's doing amazing work in India towards promoting our relationship. And this is one of the few events that we are presenting jointly, and I'll be very happy to work with him in future events as well on a joint basis. Janvi Pugnan, you have steered this organization with so much pragmatism and passion and dedication. We respect you for that. And incidentally, I love the logo, Power to Empower. And this is a theme that we would love to take forward. I also acknowledge Ms. Eileen O'Neill, President of the Network Ireland, and we may have met. And again, being in Dublin, I would be very happy to get in touch with you and take forward the outcomes of today's deliberations in as practical a manner as possible. And I want to acknowledge and greet each one of the women leaders and entrepreneurs who are represented here, who are taking time to be part of this historic initiative of bringing India and Ireland together. In fact, the new mantra of the embassy is Women Power. And I would also like to say that, Rinku, you mentioned about my book on Afghanistan called On Edge. I would just like to say that I dedicated it to the women of Afghanistan in recognition of youth and women power, in recognition of the fact that women constitute the backbone of Afghan and so many other societies, and they bring sustainability to the country. So in this context, we are very happy to participate in this very important event. I would like to thank FICCI FLO and Network Ireland for partnering in this initiative, which brings women together from both the countries to be able to exchange information, to share experiences, and to bring that connection to grow business, trade, and investment opportunities. And Rinku, I like to also acknowledge and appreciate your vision and pragmatism for this conceptualizing this concept of bringing India and Ireland together through women entrepreneurship, and it's part of the FICCI FLO Women of Seven Countries initiative. So that's very encouraging. I'd very quickly just go through, because that's the topic I have been given, is to very quickly go through the women entrepreneurship in general. Then I'll come to India and Ireland and then offer just very few suggestions. And I'll try to keep within the time limit which has been allotted to me. We all understand that for business, evidence is mounting that investing in women makes good business sense. Women are present in every part of the global value chain as producers, business owners, executives, employees, distributors, and consumers. As such, empowering women across the value chain presents an incredible opportunity for business to improve the lives of people making, selling, and buying products. And in so doing, business can ensure more stable and efficient supply chains, draw on a diverse pool of talent, and reach new consumer segments. An underrepresentation of women in business is a missed opportunity, both from the social and economic point of view. Women represent the largest market opportunity and control $20 trillion in annual spending across the globe. When we invest in women, communities, states, and countries are benefited from that, which generates a multiplier effect and sets a positive example. And this is important for the next generation of girls. And companies are increasingly dedicating resources and setting public commitments to women's progress. At the same time, we are also aware that women's rights are being rolled back in few countries, and progress in closing gender gaps in workplace is not as advanced as we would like that to be. And achieving gender equality by 2030 will require far stronger collaborations and scaled up programs, including at the embassy itself, dedicated to promoting women's empowerment. I must say at this stage that in the Indian embassy, we have very few women, and I have made a very strong case to the Ministry of External Affairs to increase our strength of women officers, as well as the local employees that we have at the embassy. And at the embassy, we make our best efforts to incorporate the gender component in all our programs. On International Women's Day, we pay a huge tribute. We make special efforts to organize programs saluting women in Ireland and India. There is zero tolerance to policy of gender bias at the embassy. And in all our programs, we even set up the community support groups in the time of the pandemic to help out with the distressed Indian community. This was done in various cities across Ireland, but we made sure that women were represented in that, and they are playing a fantastic role in reaching out and providing support to communities in such challenging times as the COVID. And at this stage, I would like to say that we all do understand that, of course, women face a range of challenges when they are doing business. These include cultural and political barriers, lack of training and mentoring, and a serious lack of funding. In 2017, only 2% of venture funding went to female founders, and these are the last figures available. Nevertheless, women's entrepreneurs' rate rose globally by 13%, and they continue to rise, which is very encouraging, reflecting broader momentum of increased female representation across public and private sectors. Now, to promote women entrepreneurship in general, which will also be relevant for collaboration between India and Ireland, we need to look at various aspects. I'm talking on a general basis. Improving access to and development of financial and human capital in public and private sector. Providing loans at cheaper rates, giving a moratorium period, investing in small and medium enterprises run by women. And this is a key focus, small and medium enterprises, both by the government of India and Ireland. Creating incentives for individuals and organizations to invest in women-owned companies through venture funds, corporate venture private equity, and social capital. Next, modernizing existing government certification, grant, and loan payments. And the Indian government, I can say, has been undertaking these projects. Facilitating connections by increasing access to local and global networks, creating enabling policy framework that aims to include more women into senior and leadership positions, and I'll come to that in Ireland itself in a minute. Helping entrepreneurs embrace diversity in their hiring, culture, and thought. And this is important. Encouraging leaders to recognize and address the role of bias, both conscious and unconscious, through training programs, promoting positive success stories of female business owners through the media, conferences, and leadership movements. And if you see the embassy, Facebook, and Twitter, and other social media platforms, we have been providing a lot of encouragement through various programs, through prizes. Even one of the events that we organized on the Republic Day was an essay competition on the progressive role of women in today's time, particularly in sustaining societies and in post-COVID period. And there are good prizes offered for that, which will be advertised again through the social media platforms. And increasing awareness among women, and this is related to training, because training and mentoring again becomes an increasingly important part of the hardware, software, and digital resources that they can access to scale the companies. And this becomes more important in the time of COVID, when we are all turning to new frontiers of technology. Now, coming to India and Ireland relationship, the president of FICCI FLO has already laid out the basic foundations of our relationship, which are rooted in our freedom struggle movements, and how that has laid a strong foundation for a political, warm relationship. But that is not enough. We need to sustain that through very strong economic, science and technology, research and development component. Today, we are judged by the amount of business and trade that we can generate for our countries, rather than just a warm political relationship, which is existent in any case, in case of most countries. And this is what we are trying to endeavor through out-of-the-box mechanisms. And I fully appreciate that we need in this partnership to give far more focus to the women power and gender component in our programs, which has not happened, but which is happening, but it needs to be given far greater focus. Janavi, you mentioned about the trade potential. There is, we have about 1.2 billion last year in goods. We have about 4.2 billion in services. First, the former in favor of India, the latter in favor of Ireland. And this is where we can come together and bring the women entrepreneurs in various sectors. I see that the speakers who are represented here, they represent various sectors of fintech, law, education, tourism, and these are precisely the traditional sectors that we have been looking at. And add to that agriculture and education. We have around 5,000 Indian students in Ireland. We have around 45,000 strong Indian community members. And they all, these are the sectors where they are engaged in. And in the post-COVID period, there was a telecon last year between Prime Minister Modi and the former Prime Minister of Ireland, Leo Varadkar, who is Indian origin, and they discussed mechanisms to make opportunities out of challenges. And medtech and medical science research was identified as one of the promising sectors, together with the frontier technology sectors of artificial intelligence, cyber security, geo-tracing, Internet of Things, virtual platforms. And these are all the sectors that women are very consistently engaged with as well. We all understand that India has a very large developed socio-economic development program. We have launched the Atma Nirbhar Self-Reliant India Mission, where foreign investors have been invited to participate in agriculture, pharmaceuticals, space, etc. And we invite the Irish entrepreneurs, particularly the women entrepreneurs, to also participate in these programs. At the same time, in the time of the COVID, the Indian lifestyle systems, immunity boosting measures, yoga, Ayurveda, etc., have also found favor. And there are lots of women entrepreneurs who are leading these sectors in Ireland, and we support them fully. And I would like to say that, in the post-Brexit scenario, Ireland assumes a special significance because of its distinct advantages. It is English speaking. It has common law, which we practice in India as well. Low corporate tax rate, highly skilled workforce, and very pro-enterprise government policy. And we would invite the women entrepreneurs to take part in this, of accessing the Irish strengths, not just for bilateral relationship, but also as a gateway for accessing the EU market and eventually also the transatlantic US market. And I think the women, are there at the fore. There are some success stories in Ireland as well, but we need to encourage more. And that's why this collaborative effort that has been established between FICCI, FLO, and Network Ireland is very, very timely, particularly coming at this very challenging time when everything is being reassessed, when we are working under the new normal. So this is really a good time for the two organizations to come together, supported by the governments of India and Ireland. The mission, the Indian Embassy itself, we have commissioned some basic reports on key sectors like pharmaceuticals, aviation, impact of Brexit on high-tech sector in Ireland. We'd be very happy to share these with your organizations and to see where the women entrepreneurs could also benefit from them. At the multilateral level, I would like to say that, and you would know that India and Ireland have taken up concurrent seats at the United Nations Security Council as non-permanent members for the term 2021 and 2022. And these will provide opportunities to work on our shared priorities of multilateralism, peacekeeping, climate change, energy. And I would also add women empowerment. And this would help in building relationships in the field of gender, not just between India and Ireland, but also at the global level, because here we are being given a whole platform of the UN Security Council. I would now turn to some examples of very fine women entrepreneurship models in India-Ireland business collaboration. As we all know that healthcare constitutes one of the major areas of collaboration between our two.
Aditya Birla Fashion to buy 51% stake in designer brand.
And of the 45,000 or so Indian community members, the majority are engaged in the healthcare sector and they are women. At our Republic Day speech, the Minister for Climate, he mentioned that 20% of all nurses in Ireland are represented by India. So already the Indian women are making a huge difference to the socio-economic development and the healthcare systems in Ireland. We have the president of the India-Ireland Business Association, who's a woman, Neela Kanti Ford. Just today, this morning, we had a webinar with the India-Ireland Business Association. She's handing over her reins to another gentleman, but she has had a sterling role and she will continue to guide us and support us. And she could also be available to the women entrepreneurs between these two organizations. Of course, we know about Dr. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, who's the honorary consul of Ireland in Bengaluru, and she runs this very successful pharmaceutical company, Biocon, with strong linkages with Ireland, and again, as a model for Indian and Irish women entrepreneurs. We have Bhagya Barrett. Very recently, even during the time of the pandemic, she launched the Maharani Gin, and it is very interestingly launched from Cork, and the name of the distillery is Rebel City Distillery, referring to Cork. And she has, taken herbs and spices from Kerala, from a women's cooperative in Kerala. And she comes from Kerala, where the whole culture is women-oriented. And it is a homage to women from Kerala. And that is a huge achievement, and we have been promoting it widely. We have Rita Shah, who's the founder and CEO Shabra Plastics and Recycling. It's the first plant of its kind and the largest in the region for recycling, reprocessing of waste plastics, and manufacturing of plastic bags collected from waste in Ireland. And she's got a huge name for herself in County Monaghan. I visited her during and we discussed how she could further a collaboration, and we could involve her in this work of getting, helping out and assisting women from Ireland and India. We have many other examples. The wife of the president of Ireland, Sabina Higgins, She's a huge fan of India. She made a passionate plea for yoga to be incorporated in the school curriculum of Ireland at the last International Day of Yoga event that we organized. She participates in a lot of our events, and we should cultivate her as a patron of Network Ireland and FICCI FLO partnership. We have several authors. We have Kaveri Madhavan, Indian origin, but now she's Irish, who's written, her latest book was The Painted on the Irish Connaught Rangers mutiny in India in 1920. We have professors at various universities, Kathleen Chakrabarti, Jane O'Meara at UCT and Trinity. They've been doing sterling work on Indian history. We have yoga leaders. We have Maureen Nightingale. We have Claudia McCummings. Even the head of the India Tourist Office based in UK, but responsible for Ireland as well, is a lady, Shobana Sarangi, and we've done some interesting tourism trade shows in Dublin, in Cork, and other cities. So I think these are the people who need to come on board as well to be able to assist our collaboration. And coming to suggestions, I've already laid out some. I would say that FICCI FLO and Network Ireland can set up a structured framework supported by networking forums, startup communities, and accelerators. And towards this, Rinku, I would still suggest that a concept note be developed with very specific outcomes, objectives, how to take it forward, which will also be useful to draw up a plan of action with integrated monitoring and reporting systems, so that we can be held accountable as to where, how quickly we are making progress, where are the challenges, and what could be the solutions to resolve these challenges. In Ireland itself, there is a very, everybody knows there is the Enterprise Ireland Female Entrepreneurship Strategy, which is very encouraging. It has initiatives such as competitive funds to support female-led business teams, identification and promotion of role models, sponsorship of events, etc. And I'm sure that the president of Network Ireland would be able to expound more on this. I have already spoken about the India-Ireland Business Association. This morning we had a very useful webinar. There were more team members who participated. I spoke to them about this event, and I did get an indication from the president, new president, and the vice chairman. The vice chairman happens to be the head of TCS in Ireland, and they would be very willing to support this collaboration between FICCI, FLO, and Network Ireland. So if you have any concrete, specific programs that could be supported, I will put it up to India-Ireland Business Association. And another encouraging aspect is that the Indian chapter of Ireland-India Business Association will also be launched very soon, and Brendan Ward would be able to tell you more about that. And that could again be another organization with which strong bonds could be developed. There are some important projects, like we are in the process of signing and negotiating an MOU between the Central Bank of Ireland and International Financial Services Centre in India, which will help in taking forward the financial sector, in facilitating capacity building, technical assistance, promoting innovation, which could also be helpful for FICCI FLO and Enterprise Ireland. We are in the process of having a migration and mobility partnership agreement, which we will take forward at the EU level. The bilateral trade and investment agreement, I hope, will be reignited, which will benefit Ireland as well. And at the provincial level also, once we have established this connection, it will be very useful to go to the provinces. And during the time of the pandemic over the last year, as the restrictions were lifted, I have been going out to the provinces, to a lot of counties in Ireland. I've been meeting with the chambers of commerce. I would bring this prospect of greater collaboration between the chambers of commerce at the county level and at the central level with Network. I'm sure you already have that, but just to bring that FICCI FLO focus into that would be very helpful as well. So I will just conclude. I'll be happy to take questions if there are later, but I would also just conclude that India and Ireland have great potential. India's economy is growing faster than anticipated in the time of the COVID. In a recent report, IMF has said that India would have the fastest economic growth rate. Of course, there would be lots of challenges as well. And Ireland itself has been one of the most dynamic economies in the European Union. And there is just no reason why women entrepreneurs should not benefit from our two countries' collaboration, which seems so promising. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Your Excellency, that was
thank you so much
for all of us.
Please,
thank
Gandhi,
you so
please.
much. Next, go ahead.
Sure. Yes. It is also my honor to introduce His Excellency Brendan Ward, the Ambassador of Ireland to India, one of the most knowledgeable people I know and a true Indophile. Ambassador Ward graduated from Trinity College Dublin in 1982 and entered the Department of Foreign Affairs. He served as the third secretary from May 1985 onwards in Zagreb, Buenos Aires, and Beijing. 1995 to 2008, he served as first secretary in Zagreb, Cairo, OSCE Vienna, and headquarters, EU Division. After his stints as counselor in headquarters, Development Cooperation Directive, and headquarters for Political Division, he was appointed as Ambassador of Ireland in Ankara in February 2015. He was posted as Ambassador of Ireland to India in August 2019, concurrently in charge of Maldives, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. Welcome, Ambassador Ward. We await your address.
Thank you very much, Rinku, for the initiative in organizing this groundbreaking event. Thank you also to Ms. Kukan, the National President of the FLO, for her very comprehensive and very informative presentation. Greetings, of course, to my good friend and colleague in Dublin, Sandeep Kumar. As Sandeep has actually covered quite a number of points or touched on points which I included in this speech, I'll curtail my remarks and allow for a freer flow of discussion. Also, of course, greetings to Aisling O'Neill and the other ladies from Network Ireland who are joining us today. I'm pleased to note from the chat that relations are already reasonably well developed. We have among the participants one lady in the IT sector with a background in developing IT services in Bengaluru here in India, and another proud Indian citizen joining us from Mayo. It's great to see Ireland included in this program of the 7 regions. And the work, of course, of the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry has been of even greater importance than usual in the circumstances of the pandemic, when businesses all over India, as indeed all over the world, have faced increased challenges. Business in Ireland has also faced great challenges, and for a country as outward-looking and as internationally oriented, the disruption to connectivity, international travel and transport have presented particular difficulties for us. I'm pleased to say that our commercial ties with India have remained strong, despite a drop in goods trade in 2020. But in 2021, we are on course to see growth again in both trade and in business exchanges. As has been mentioned, the bulk of our commercial relations are in the service sector, which is almost 3 times as large as our trade in goods, and which has held up remarkably well during the pandemic. Now, being realistic, it's no secret that Ireland, a small and very distant island, is not very well known in India. A major part of my work and that of my colleagues here in India is to increase this awareness. And I think it's fair to say that in recent years, we've had considerable success. Apart from our growing trade, we welcome around 5,000 Indian students every year to study in Irish universities and colleges. Most of them take advantage of the working visas on offer and spend a couple of years working in Ireland after graduation, thus increasing awareness of India in Ireland, but also on their return to this country, increasing awareness of Ireland in India, including in some fairly important sectors. There are some 55 Indian companies with a presence in Ireland these days. Most of them have been assisted by IDA, our investment promotion agency, through its office in Mumbai. I think Tanaz Boriwala, the director of that office, is among the participants today. And as Sandeep mentioned, the Indian community in Ireland now numbers over 40,000. Some of these 40,000 are putting down very deep roots. Indians were, in fact, the second largest group to take Irish citizenship last year. Around 850 Indians opted to become citizens of Ireland. Now, I know, of course, that these numbers in India are utterly insignificant, where everything seems to happen either in millions or in tens of millions. But in Ireland, they are quite significant, and significant enough to make a difference. The Indian community now amounts to almost 1% of the population of Ireland. And of course, the presence of a community which is represented all over the country makes a big difference to new arrivals coming here from India. I was reading recently a memoir by a lady called Asha Chawa, who moved with her husband to Ireland in 1970, at a time when the Indian community probably measured in the dozens, and certainly not in the high hundreds. She and her husband pursued a very successful business career in Ireland over the last 50 years. But she talks about the hardships of being unable to find things, exotic spices like garlic in the shops of Dublin 50 years ago. Not a problem that Indians in Ireland face today. As Sandeep mentioned, the political and diplomatic relations between Ireland are strong and will be exemplified during our shared term on the UN Security Council as non-permanent members in 2021 and 2022. But also here in India, we have been expanding our official presence. In early 2019, we opened the Consulate General of Ireland in Mumbai. As this is the business capital of India, it's also the location of Enterprise Ireland, our trade promotion body, IDA, our investment promotion agency, and Tourism Ireland. At the beginning of this year, all of these agencies joined the Consulate General in a new Ireland House office suite, which is now the one-stop shop for Indian businesses dealing with Ireland. 18 Irish and Indian staff are there, dealing with the business sector and strengthening the already strong relationships which exist there. I think events such as today's virtual meeting serve a useful purpose in developing awareness and in forging links. I think it'd be fair to say that the world of business in both Ireland and India has not always been the most welcoming to women entrepreneurs. As was mentioned, about 1 entrepreneur in 7 in India is a woman, and 1 in 5 in Ireland. So in both countries, perhaps some way to go. But the developments of these networks and these links at the national and international level can overcome some of the difficulties which women face. I'll just mention an initiative which the embassy is undertaking at the moment, Irish participants will be familiar with St. Bridget's Day, which falls on the 2nd of February, and which celebrates a powerful Irish woman who was either an early Christian saint, a Celtic goddess, or both. In recent years, we've chosen to use this day to celebrate the achievements and the prowess of women through cultural events, conferences, and exhibitions all over the world. In India, we're not able to hold a real-life event in current circumstances, but we are using our social media platforms to draw attention to prominent Irish women with Indian connections and Indian women with Irish connections. Of course, we're including historical figures, some of whom have been mentioned, such as Annie Besant and Sister Nivedita. But we're also mentioning contemporary figures, such as Kavri Madhuvan, the Irish Indian novelist whom Sandeep mentioned earlier. Also, E.B. Baskin, the Irish broadcaster and advocate for Ayurveda living, and indeed Asha Chawla, the Indian businesswoman whom I mentioned earlier. I think looking at these women and their achievements can serve as something of an inspiration or an example for women in all walks of life in both Ireland and India today. Well, I'll conclude my remarks there, and I look forward to listening carefully to what the other speakers with their business backgrounds have to say, and also to taking any questions or any comments which any of the participants may have to offer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brendan. That was indeed very heartening to hear from you, and we will be reaching out to you to take this forward. I would now like to present the President of Network Ireland, Aisling O'Neill.
Can you all hear me? Yes.
Yes, very well.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the introduction, Rinku. My name is Aisling O'Neill, and I'm President of Network Ireland for 2021. And it is my pleasure on behalf of Network to welcome Your Excellencies Brendan Ward and Sandeep Kumar, President of Flow, Janabi Fukan, and of course to welcome our President of Network Dublin, who facilitated all of this with Rinku from the organisation in India. It is my honour to be here with you all this morning and this evening for those of you joining us from India. In my day job, I manage an innovation centre in Waterford. So it's the business incubator for Waterford Institute of Technology. And it represents a really special ecosystem of entrepreneurship, bringing together academic researchers, world-class industrial researchers, entrepreneurs, skills and talent, and a very special innovation infrastructure to focus on the development of entrepreneurs in the region of Southeast Ireland, but reaching out to stakeholders locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. And we would work with very many organizations across the world. When Janabi was speaking earlier about the representation of women in entrepreneurship, I thought it was very interesting to think about a 20% representation and the progress that has been made to get to that point. In the sector that I work in digital technology, it's far more challenging than that, and less than 10% of the entrepreneurs that I work with in our clubs would be female entrepreneurs. So there is work to be done for sure. Network Ireland was established in 1983, again, the same year as Flow. And since then, so for nearly 40 years, we have been supporting the personal and professional development of women to realise their ambitions and achieve their most satisfying careers. And when we think about the challenges that face women entrepreneurs, it is a shared canvas, I would say, around the challenges that are associated with entrepreneurship. And I think when Janabi described the 3 C's and that capability building, that capacity and that confidence building piece. That's so, so important in my experience working in this domain. Both Brendan and Sandeep referenced the Enterprise Ireland initiatives and the female entrepreneurship strategy that Enterprise Ireland have initiated over the last 5-6 years has been really instrumental in increasing the level of entrepreneurs represented on the programs that they run, like the Competitive Start Fund, like their High Potential Startup activity. And like that, they have managed to increase their representation. So from 1 in 10 in 2012, the participants on those programs were female-led businesses or co-founded by females. They now have gotten that up to 1 in 4. So they've made real progress in that space. And when I think about the challenges to entrepreneurship for females in particular, I think it's really relevant to look at the kind of nature and nurture piece. And when I was delighted to hear Ambassador Sandeep Kumar talking about the importance of working with girls for them to become entrepreneurial women. And it's something that's really close to my heart in my work in ARC Labs and through Network, to really look at how we can support youth entrepreneurship and that normalization of the entrepreneurial process or pathway for young people in Ireland and indeed in India. And I think that we have to focus on what we can do in that capability building piece and how we can instill that from youth to have a long lasting and sustainable impact in increasing the representation of female entrepreneurs. When I was thinking a little bit more about what specific challenges women entrepreneurs face, I was inspired by a quote that Dr. Sarah Lewis, in conversation with Brené Brown, if any of you like podcasts, the Dare to Lead podcast with Brené Brown is superb. But Sarah Lewis described how we should dedicate our time to what we are driven to do. And in the context of this conversation, I think that's really, really relevant from two aspects. Firstly, the passion and uncovering that passion and realizing that ambition. But then also we find, and certainly it's not the case in absolutely every household or in every situation, but for women, we often are still trying to do everything in our kind of normal lives or in this sort of housework or caring for family and those different elements that come to play, that actually it's quite difficult for us to advance to that realization of those entrepreneurial ambitions when we're still trying to do all of these other things and be all of these things to everyone. So taking that time to really assess what we're doing in our lives to determine what we are absolutely passionate about and driven to do and dedicating our time to that. The role modeling piece is so important for young women to see women in leadership roles, to see women pursuing entrepreneurship so that they can see it and be it. So that's a huge thing that Enterprise Ireland are focused on in that role modeling piece and supporting organizations. So not just women entrepreneurs, but supporting organizations to develop the female leadership of their organizations. And each of these initiatives are going to pave the way forward for all of us to live in a society that supports more sustainable entrepreneurship for females. I am absolutely thrilled to listen to the experiences of the entrepreneurs that we have speaking to us this morning. And I really look forward to continuing these collaborations. You know, we're living in a time where geography really, really is history, right? So if we were to try and organize this event this morning, this evening, in a physical format, it would take probably a year of planning to organize all of the travel, all of the different back and forth. Whereas now we're in an environment where we can all connect and we can learn together. And I think we can certainly begin the process of activating the sharing of best practice, having these different think tank initiatives that will allow us to share experiences and knowledge and use that forum to empower our female entrepreneurs to strive to greater heights. And certainly as well, when we talk or when Janabi was speaking earlier about the opportunity for us to do business together. Again, that's such an easier access now than ever before. So definitely, as we progress this relationship, to see the ways that we can continue to nurture these relationships. And certainly, as we have heard from both ambassadors, the appetite is strong to encourage this interaction. So thank you so much for the invitation and for initiating this wonderful collaboration. And as I said, I do so look forward to listening to our entrepreneurs this morning.
Thank you, Aisling. That was really very heartening to hear so much about Network Ireland. And I think all our members, as you can see in the chat, are really looking forward to taking this first initial meeting forward. So yes, we would be working on that soon. And like you said, now is the time to actually hear the voice of women. And these are 4 women who I've discovered are absolutely wonder women, who've turned the tide against what was supposed to happen, who have actually risen above what was expected of them and continue to create new waves as they go on. Without much further ado, I'd like to invite Neha Bagaria, the founder and CEO of jobsforher.com, an online platform that connects women with companies, communities, and skilling to start, restart, and rise in their careers. Neha, over to you.
Thanks, Rinku. Thank you very much for that introduction. It's here, and it was fantastic listening to the other speakers as well. It's amazing to see the kind of work and interest that is happening between the 2 countries. When Rinku asked me to be here today, she asked me to share a little bit about my own journey as a woman entrepreneur in India. So I thought that, I could share a little bit about my own learnings from my own journey, and hopefully there'll be a lot to gain from that. So first and foremost, I think something that I would love to share with all of you was that my career journey is very similar to the career journeys of so many other women in India, and frankly, women in the world, where, the career path is not just a straight linear line. The career path is usually with its ups and downs, and not just ups and downs, but as Sheryl Sandberg calls it, a big jungle gym. So there are a lot of on-ramps on this highway, there are a lot of off-ramps, there are times when I paused, there are times when I accelerated, there are times when I refueled. And because of that journey, I could also understand what are the different challenges that other women are going through in India in order to increase women participation in the Indian workplace. As most of you will know, India currently has one of the lowest number of women participation in the workplace compared to any country in the world. Even countries like in the Middle East and North Africa, where women are actually not even allowed to work. And some of the big reasons that this is true is because of the big drop-off that happens when women in India stop working completely. And I went through the same thing when motherhood hit me. So before that, I had graduated from the Wharton School in finance and marketing. I had started my own education company in Mumbai. Marriage brought me to Bangalore, which is when I joined my husband's pharmaceutical manufacturing business. Never thought I'd stop working, and that's when my firstborn came into my life. For me, that ended up being quite a strong break from my career, and I decided to be a full-time mom. Luckily for me, when my second son came into my life, I decided that I needed to get back to work. And that is not a decision that most Indian women take very easily or very lightly. Luckily for me, I had a family business that I could turn to, and that's where I restarted my career. But when I got back to work, I started questioning the other women around me about why they weren't getting back to work. And you can imagine, I knew lawyers, MBAs, architects, engineers, all who had stopped working for some reason or the other. And I realized that there are a lot of challenges that women face when they're restarting their careers. And that's a huge talent pool of women that India is currently completely losing if they don't figure out a way to ramp them back into the workplace. So those are some of the challenges that I would like to share with you today to figure out how we can have programs and initiatives in order to get them back in the workplace. What I realized, especially as a management student, was that you need a management degree of a whole different kind if you want these women back. One is getting them to figure out how to manage their guilt. 2 is how to manage their time. 3 is how to manage their fears that the world has moved on without them and they can't catch up. And 4 is how to manage all the biases that they face at home with their families, asking them why do they need to work, and with their colleagues, asking them, are they really serious about their careers? In order to overcome these challenges, we've been working very hard with companies to have dedicated returnee programs through which these women can get back into the workplace. And these are usually returnee programs which are more like an internship. It could be a 3 to 6 month internship with a stipend, through which that woman gets upskilled, gets her confidence back, and then gets joined in that company as a lateral hire. Now, that's been one great learning from my own journey, which I could translate into the wider world. And over the last almost 6 years now, we have seen extremely successful returnee journeys of women in India. The second big part that I have seen through my own experience has been the huge dearth of women in technology. I myself am a non-techie. I graduated with a business degree, and I find myself now running a tech startup. And the reason why I started a tech startup was because I wanted to solve the problem of millions and not of thousands. And the only way to scale that was by using technology. But it's not very easy being one of the few women in the tech industry in India. Again, biases are many, and the rules of the game when it comes to the tech industry are not that conducive to a woman's life stages and a woman's career journey. Which is why over here, there have to be a lot of mindset changes that are required. For example, even though Jobs for Her is a tech startup, we have barely ever worked weekends, let alone evenings. We have always believed in giving great flexibility to our women. 85% of my workforce, by the way, are mothers themselves. Even before the COVID pandemic, we believed in flexibility, and now we find it even easier to do so. In fact, we have said that we will not get our people to come back to the workplace unless and until schools in India have restarted. Because otherwise, how do you leave your kids? The same kind of mindsets need to be adopted by a lot of companies if they want to increase women in technology. And these kind of policy changes will not just be good for women, they'll be good for families, they'll be good for parents. The other big dearth that is there right now that needs to be filled is upskilling women in technology. Because as we all know, technology is rapidly advancing and changing, and we need to be on the top of our game if we want to get the jobs of the future. Which is why at Jobs for Her, we have created something called the Her Tech Academy, where every month we are giving out 101 free scholarships to women in the latest technologies like Java, Python, full stack, Node.js, React, so that they can be equal participants in these jobs of the future. The third big area that I have seen through my own journey and which I see a big dearth of is getting more women at leadership levels. As you go up the ladder in corporate India, the numbers thin out extremely badly. At the entry level, you still have 30% women, but at the management level, that drops to 10%. And at the leadership level, it's in the single digits. Over there also, we need to have concentrated initiatives and programs to enable women to climb up that ladder, because the challenges that they face in shattering that glass ceiling are very different from what men face as they climb up that ladder. And again, over here, we need to change the rules of the game. How we are appraising, how we conduct appraisals, how we conduct performance reviews, how we conduct our evaluations, how we have our networking rules and games set out in the office place. If networking only happens in a bar or on the golf course or on a smoke break, that is alienating women. If we don't have structured mentorship programs in companies, that is stopping women from being able to reach out to male mentors. All these need to be put in place so that we can enable women to climb up that ladder. And so here too, we have started a women's only networking club called the Her Key Club, which is specifically for rising women leaders, so that together they can inspire one another, they can share with one another, they can learn from one another and keep climbing up. Because after all, at Jobs for Her, we want to make sure that we can enable women to start, restart and rise in their careers. Something that not just me and not just the other women in my team, but so many women across the last 6 years have been able to do. I look forward to any questions that you all might have at the end of this.
Thank you so much, Neha. That was an intensely personal experience, and thank you for sharing that with everyone here. With that, I'd like to now invite Rebecca Lyons, the Managing Director of Portobello Institute. She is driven by a passion for education and a belief in the opportunities that it creates for everyone. Over to you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rinka, for the introduction. And I'd just like to extend my thanks to both yourself and to your partner there, Johanni, for the invitation to speak today. It's a great honor to be part of this conclave. For me, I suppose my journey started prior nearly to me. It started with my mother. Portobello Institute was founded by my mother in 1981, 40 years ago this year. And she was a woman ahead of her time. She always believed in the power of education and the opportunity that that represented for all who could access it. And so she consistently strove to make education accessible for those whereby education had perhaps failed them, or they just simply didn't have an access route in. So for me, female entrepreneurship was in my home from a very young age, and she was my role model. And I have 6 daughters and 1 son, but my 6 daughters, I hope I am a positive role model for them, and I constantly encourage them to be entrepreneurial in their own outlook in life. I believe I couldn't do what I do without the very competent and very capable team that I have, 75% of whom, more than 75% of whom, are also female. And many of them are working mothers with children, with elderly parents, with a lot of responsibilities outside of their working life. And I believe very much that as a female-led business, that we've got to support other women to join the workforce, as your previous speaker mentioned there. And we've got to create a flexible environment that allows them to drop their children to school, to leave the workforce if a child is sick, to be there when they need to be there. Because as I always say, life is real, and at times you've got to drop and run. And when those times happen, as female founders and as female-led businesses, we need to be supportive of women and the responsibilities that they have in their lives. His Excellency Ambassador Kumar mentioned the Enterprise Ireland Fund for Female Entrepreneurship, and it's not a surprise that there is a specific fund there to encourage female entrepreneurs to access funding, because this research that has been sourced there that identifies that female leaders and female founders, we are risk adverse. So therefore, where our male counterparts would see, there is no glass ceiling, there is no limit in the sky, we would be contemplating, I'm not sure if that's for me. And we would be thinking of the reasons why we can't do it. And often that glass ceiling is put there by ourselves. It's not put there, certainly in Ireland, the culture here is, you can do what you want to do and you can be who you want to be. And sometimes it's a lack of confidence that stops us availing of the opportunities that are potentially there. So I'm delighted to see that one of your initiatives is around building and increasing and growing confidence among female entrepreneurs, because we can do whatever we set out to do as long as we believe strongly enough in it and we have support. Our own ambassador there, Ambassador Ward, mentioned the trade numbers between Ireland and India, and I think we have a unique opportunity. I wonder, what is the figure, if we were to drill into those numbers, what is the figure that is actually being generated between women? What is the figure of trade by female-led businesses and female-founded businesses, and that we have an opportunity here on both sides of our countries to actually promote that trade, to grow those relationships, and to increase the trade between our companies, or between our countries rather. For me, female entrepreneurship as well, your previous speaker mentioned around, the challenges that are there as a mother and as a female entrepreneur. And for me, sometimes there's the guilt. There's the guilt of wanting to work, of wanting to focus on something while you have children who want you to focus on them. And sometimes you're giving 80% at home and you're giving 80% in work, and you're giving 100% in neither place, but you're actually giving 160% of yourself. And it's how we manage that, and how we manage ourselves through that process, that actually can define how successful we can be, and the role model that we can set for both our children and our male children, to show that women in the workforce, that's the place that they should be, that they can grow businesses, that they can, we start with the generation that's around us, and we encourage them to open their minds around the power and the contribution that women have to make. So I hope that's given you some small insight into my beliefs around female entrepreneurship. And again, thank you for having me speak today.
Thank you, Rebecca. That was really, really insightful. And thank you for sharing your journey with us. I'd now like to welcome Rati Shetty, the co-founder and chief product officer of bankbazaar.com. She leads her team to deliver innovative product experiences for complex financial products like loans, credit cards, and insurance through intelligent interface design and smart technology. A young mother, she actually has her son's birthday party, which is going to start soon. And yes, it is her passion for women entrepreneurship, which brings her here today. Over to you, Rati.
Thank you so much, Rinku. It's such a pleasure to be here. I think being part of an interaction with Ireland and women from Ireland is something which I take great privilege in. So I will dive into my agenda, which is basis what Rinku has advised me to talk about how the journey has been as an entrepreneur for me, and I will also touch upon how it's been as a woman entrepreneur, right, and how the journey so far has been. So I am a co-founder at Bank Bazaar, which is a website for people to find their best possible interest rates and best possible credit cards, and to also check their credit scores, which is also very important. So I think these things have always been there. Just that what we wanted to do is we went through the way we started was a very cliche story. We'd gone through our own experience where it was a lot of red tape, a lot of paperwork, a lot of meeting people, and a rigmarole of just a lot of boring things to do. We actually wanted to transform that whole offline process, which was very tiresome for us, filled with a lot of friction and a lot of, as I mentioned, red tape. We wanted to transform that to the online world, and this is about 13 years ago when we had decided, the idea came to us through our own personal experience. We saw that, there's potential for technology, and in those days, obviously banks were very different. They used to operate only in the physical world. So we wanted to translate the whole offline experience to online. At that time, it was a very, very lofty sort of vision that we had. But I can say proudly that we have been able to make that disruption that we wanted to do. I think, obviously, there's been a lot of momentum that the Indian population has also been able to make in terms of mobility towards the internet, and what the government has also helped in terms of technological advances. So I think the whole journey has been nothing short of incredible for me. I would say that Bank Bazaar is one of my, I'd say my first baby, because I started buying Bazaar before my kids came into my life. And I was, working, I think, given the day of my pregnancies, I was probably working till the last night. I delivered the next morning. I was working till like 8 o'clock the previous evening. And I know that it's not unheard of in some places of the world, but in some places, like in India, I know a lot of people actually take a couple of months off, right? But I think I would say that I have been nurtured to just never give up. My grandmom has been a female entrepreneur. My mother's been working. I have a lot of great role models around me. And I think what has always driven me is that, hey, if someone else can do it, why can't I do it? And if it's a male who can do it, I think a female can do it much better. So I think that that whole grounding and my growing up, I have seen that there's nothing that a woman can't do. I believe that today we have as a company as well, I can say proudly that Bank Bazaar focuses a lot on female giving empowerment and a lot of employment to females. We have about 50% of male and female distribution from our call centers. In tech, we have some of the leading positions in tech by very powerful, strong women who lead a lot of great decisions. Right? On my team, I have some of the people who actually create the product experiences and the user journeys to make them as simplified and as frictionless as possible. There are women who are doing it along with men as well. But I'm just trying to say that there are a lot of leading women who take very key decisions in Bank Bazaar. I think Bank Bazaar was one of the first to actually was one of the first companies, even before the government mandated for women to have a 6-month post-delivery break. So we were one of the companies that had actually taken this call much before as a attention and focus to what a woman needs during that time and what mothers need. In terms of the way we operate. In terms of how Bank Bazaar operates, I think we have a lot of forums for women to empower women, to educate them, to let them know what their rights are. We do have a posh setup. We do have places where women can actually, there's a group of women who can, who actually mentor other women. And it's not just professional, but it also touches upon the personal needs as well. So I think from where I would say that, as my journey has been along with I think I've worked completely with men all the time on my board as well. I mean, in terms of management, I've always had, I guess I was the only woman there. So I think the representation is actually much lesser than we have a lot more potential. Representation is definitely lesser. I think that some of the speakers have already covered, what the blockers are, right? And usually it's either what the society has decided for us, it's what the family has allowed in terms of permissions or restrictions. And some women who are extremely capable, unfortunately, have to sort of succumb to those kind of conditions. I think the only way we can break out of that is to nurture more of this, right? And I think do it for our kids, do it for people around us, for the girls around us, and like the person before me mentioned, for the boys around us as well, because there is really nothing that a woman cannot do. And I think it's really in our heads, it's in the heads of perhaps family members or society. At least I can talk for India. And I think these are things that we can not talk about, but just do them. And the only way is to get out there and believe in oneself, to believe that, hey, I will do this, right? And there's nobody who's going to stop me. I think what my grandmom told me was just be unstoppable and never fear anything. And I think I have benefited from that, from those words. I believe I believe that, you know, in every area there's a lot of learning. I think there's always as a company and as a person, I look at best practices, learning from various places, be it in fintech or outside as well. We try to learn from everyone who's doing well. Sometimes we learn from our own mistakes. I think this setup, this interaction with Ireland and with the entrepreneurs there and businesses is really fantastic setup. And I hope that, you know, we can interact more. There's always something that we can learn from each other. And I'm looking forward to, you know, to a lot more connections. So thank you, everyone. And if there's anything, any questions or anything, I can take that.
Thank you so much, Rati. Like you rightly said, we all get inspired by women in our lives. And yes, we will take you up on that offer and involve you in the further deliberations. I'd now like to call upon our last Wonder Woman for this evening, Lisa McKenna, who is the principal of McKenna & Co. Solicitors in Dublin. She's also a member of Network Ireland and a national awardee at Network Ireland's Women in Business Awards. Over to you, Lisa.
Lisa, we might be having some sound trouble there. I think you might be on mute.
You're on mute, Lisa.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and namaste to our friends in Delhi and India. It's a pleasure to be here this morning with you. My name is Lisa McKenna, and I'm the principal solicitor of my own law firm, McKenna & Co., located in Dublin. So just a brief background to myself. Before setting up my own law firm, I worked in a large corporate law firm. And in Ireland, there's 55% female solicitors. So we do outweigh males. However, at the leadership level, it's very much dominated by males. And there's very much a glass ceiling there at the moment, and it's very difficult to break through. So while I was working in a large corporate firm, I realized very quickly that I was just a cog in the wheel, and it was very difficult for me as a solicitor in a large corporate firm to be true to myself and my values. And with that, I didn't see an opportunity to progress there. So I knew the only way I could affect change was to go out on my own. And that's what I'd done. And as a female, to go out on your own in law, it's very rare, and even more so as a young female. So I did establish my own law firm in November 2017, and the firm has actually grown beyond my beliefs or aspirations that I had for it. I think the reasoning behind that was subconscious bias of knowing that I had to work so hard to make sure that it did work. And I think that's a big difficulty with women in law and women entrepreneurs. We feel that extra burden of having to give more because we feel that we might fail. But what I have realized, one of the hard lessons I've realized, that it's okay to fail. In fact, failing helps us grow, and you should never be afraid to fail. In fact, one of the first cases that I ever took on when I established my own law firm was a gender inequality case against a large corporation in Ireland, whereby a woman who had equal status to her male colleague doing the same job, the same day-to-day task, was receiving a lesser pay. And we won that challenge successfully. So that particular case was very personal to me because I could understand the challenges that particular person was going through. So there's very much an inequality in law with women, and that glass ceiling does exist at the moment. So when I went out on my own, I knew this was the opportunity for me to create a new path for women and to inspire others. And behind me, I have a large team of budding solicitors who I hope to do my best to inspire them. And while I know they won't have any inequality within our space, I do know how important it is to educate them as to the biases that are out there in terms of inequality and the challenges that women entrepreneurs do face. So I knew that to effect change, it's really important to surround yourself with like-minded entrepreneurs. And Network Dublin has been integral to me in regard to that growth. Through Network Dublin, I realised a lot. I realised it's okay to fail. I realised that every woman is going through the exact same challenges. So I've learned so much with Network Dublin, and it's encouraged me and has been a huge support for me. Just the other day, I was told that globally, there's only 8% of women entrepreneurs. And I was actually quite shocked by that figure. I would have thought it was around the 20% mark. So I believe that in particular, as leaders, we are the people who have to affect change. And by way of recent example, the Joe Biden campaign staff, it's made up of 35% people of color, and 53% of the campaign are female. And that leadership is integral to equality and in endeavouring to achieve more. So it's really important that as leaders, we pave the way for equality with other entrepreneurs, not only within Ireland, but globally, because that's the only way in which we can make a change, that we support each other, that we collaborate, and that we always look for equality and change. I know I don't have much time because we're running out of time, but I just want to thank you for giving me this platform today and for sharing your experience. I feel really empowered by the wonderful stories, and I'm looking forward to the relationships we're going to develop in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. As you rightly said, it's okay to fail, and I'm glad. It's so heartening to hear that it was Network Ireland that really helped you foster this feeling. And with that, yes, we do come back. We've now come to our interactive Q&A round. I would now like to request Janvi to actually ask the first question. Janvi?
Thank you, Rinku. Thank you all today for this interactive session. Thank you, our excellencies who are here watching the show. Aisling, Lisa, Rebecca, Rupi, Neha. We know we're running out of time and we have so many questions for each other and for the members, and we want to take this on to the next session. But today, let me get the opportunity and ask, I don't know who would be the right person to address this to, but for Ireland, I'd like to say, since I also come from the sector of tourism, let's talk about tourism. That is one of your greatest contributors to your economy. And the COVID-19 has been this unprecedented challenge for tourism, Irish tourism as well as Indian. We understand that tourism employs 260,000 people across Ireland, and that up to 180,000 of these jobs are either vulnerable or already lost. What endeavors is your government going to take towards the recovery of this crucial sector? Maybe Ambassador would like to tell us.
Yes, indeed. So thank you very much for that question. And you're quite correct that the tourism sector is both a very significant, very important part of the Indigenous Irish economy, and also one of the areas most affected by the lockdowns and shutdowns, which have been an unavoidable but rather painful part of dealing with the pandemic in Ireland. Probably up to now, the principal way in which the government is providing support is through the income support offered to those who are unable to work in most sectors in Ireland. This involves a payment of around €350 per week for workers affected by the pandemic close down. But the reality is that, given that the current lockdown in Ireland has now been extended at its highest level until the end of the first week in March, and that effectively the St. Patrick's Day festival, which surrounds our National Day in the middle of March, will be more or less cancelled this year. It normally attracts a very large influx of tourists and visitors from the United States in particular. The longer term effects on the tourism sector are actually rather difficult to identify at this stage. It would appear some businesses are confident that they will return to viability in the summer of this year, but for others, the long-term outlook is very uncertain, indeed very negative, and there's really a very limited amount that the government can do on this in present circumstances.
Thank you for that, Ambassador. Rinku, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd request Orla to take the next question, please.
Thank you so much, Rinku. And I think just building on that previous question, it's interesting. We have a member within our own branch in Dublin who specialised in education tourism and learning of languages, and she has pivoted her business to be a completely digital experience. So it's very heartening to see people and businesses growing and evolving in these particular times. I think maybe, Aisling, I have a question for yourself. What do you think are opportunities to collaborate between Flow and Network Ireland, perhaps in the space of medical tourism or holistic wellness? Because I feel a lot of us are seeking our own wellness through the medium of technology more recently. I think it's a growing area for us in the coming months.
Absolutely, Orla. I think that's really relevant, and I think we have seen in the last year more. I mean, yoga has always been a very important part of our activity, of our life in Ireland, and certainly I can't remember, I think it was Ambassador Kumar brought up the love of yoga that our president Michael Higgins and his wife share, and it's something that has had huge impact in Ireland in terms of increasing the overall health and well-being of our society. I actually am a yoga teacher as well. I trained to be a yoga teacher 2 years ago. And it's something that I really love. And certainly for me, I had planned to be in India. I have never been to India, which makes me feel like a little bit of a fraud, sometimes. So I had planned to come and do some training in India. That was last year. That naturally didn't happen. So we'll look to 2022, maybe 2023. But certainly, already you raise a really interesting point that the integration of technology into these wellness practices is now something that, I mean, if you had said to me this time last year, Aisling, would you take your classes onto Zoom? I'd have said, absolutely no way. Sure, what would I do that for? I wouldn't get that beautiful energy from the people that practice with me. And I have to say that the community that has built around me and my yoga practice over the last 10 months, 11 months, has shown me just how much we can get via technology and how connected we can feel through this medium. Certainly at the moment, while we have no other choice, but there's going to be huge opportunities for the development of this space. And I think, like that, identifying key areas where we can collaborate will be so important. That, like that, maybe it's a case that we arrange maybe a different forum for every maybe 2 months or 3 months, that like that, we have a focus on wellness and technology. We have a focus on medical tourism. We have a focus on language learning and the opportunities for educational technologies. So we can identify together the key pillars that will bring our entrepreneurs together to work and create meaningful collaboration, you know, across our 2 wine countries.
Thank you so much, Aisling, for that. I see a question here from Nehal Parekh, who is the National Head for Incubation for Flow. She had a question for Aisling. I know I'm going to connect both of you offline, but just for the audience here, she's very keen to learn about the various startups that you incubate at your center and the kind of work they would do, as she would be keen to find ways to collaborate with startups that they at Flow are incubating at various incubation partners here in India as well.
Yes, and like that, I have responded in the chat to Nihal, because I'm very, very excited to connect with her on that very collaboration. So predominantly in ARC Labs, I work with companies in the digital technology space. So we run a number of different programs. So through Enterprise Ireland, which has been referenced a number of times today, we run the New Frontiers program. And another program that we've run, again supported by Enterprise Ireland, is our NDRC at ARC Labs Digital Technology Accelerator. So we would have companies across, again, digital health. So it's actually interesting that this has come up. And one of our members, Shahini Day, was absolutely devastated that she couldn't join us today. And she actually took part on the regional accelerator that partners, that is a kind of a partner or a neighbour to us in a different region in Ireland. And she developed called MPL. And actually we're working with Shahini to do a health challenge for Network Ireland for the month of February. So like that, it's really exciting for me to be working with a female entrepreneur in that space and using that technology to support the health and well-being of our members. So that's starting from the 1st of February, and the competition is rife. It'll be interesting to see who gets crowned Network Ireland's fittest branch. But in terms of the other kind of domains that we would work with, as I said, we have a kind of a strong focus on digital technology because we're co-located with the TSSG, the Telecommunications Systems and Software Group, and they have world-class expertise in the development of ICT and communications. So we would have companies from the fintech space and from educational technology, we would have intelligent transport companies, but really we have companies that work across any of the domains of innovation and infrastructure that we have in WIT, which also then incorporates pharmaceutical and molecular biotechnology and also advanced materials. And actually the lead of that group is from India, Ramesh, I can never say his surname, but we work very well together, and like that, we work with a variety of companies. So I'm really excited to connect with Flow and the incubation services in Flow and see how we can connect our entrepreneurs as they look to scale outside their home countries.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And just for the audience from India, I'd like you to know that IDA as well as Enterprise Ireland are both situated out of Bombay, and they are very supportive. Further, I'd like to now hand over to Jackie again to take over the proceedings, please.
Yes. Sorry about the bit of a network issue here, but we look at this interaction today with India and Ireland is just the first step. And it's been just wonderful connecting with women across the seas and across the world, and so many countries that have come together. I can just see the time is right and the time is right. And we think about the usual trade opportunities, but there's so many more that has come to my mind today when Aisling is talking here about yoga, the wellness, and it's all been on the new normal. So the future is just ours, and we have to go out and grab it. And we have to do the best we can in these circumstances. And we know that with your proactiveness and desire to work together. We'll get there. So unfortunately, though, we have to conclude, this is just, like I said, the first session. And we will look next for a B2B session, strictly under sectoral interest. We will email you and our members, and we will try to put this next step forward. And we won't like to lose time on that, but work as fast as we can on that side. So as we can see that envisaging this potential in this India-Ireland relations, our role as business chambers has huge significance. It is our responsibility as well to work jointly towards this goal. So with all our eminent members, guests who are here, and the ambassadors of both the countries, we are very positive that this can only go on to the next step, and a great door of collaboration is opened. So with this active support from the embassies, Network Ireland, we will create this roadmap and ideate further and get your ideas and formulate this work plan. But as we know, as we've shared in our dossier with you, the common sectoral interest of our members in Flow, over 7,000 members, we are collecting their details and the business interests. So those who want to connect with your country will do so, and likewise. So that will be the next step. So here I would like to thank His Excellency Sandeep Kumar, His Excellency Brendan Ward, and Aisling O'Neill, President of Ireland Network, for partnering with Flow on this. And I also take this opportunity to formally thank Lisa McKenna, Rebecca Lyons, Rati Shetty, and Neha Bagaria. And with this, if I'm sorry, I hope I've not missed out any names, but I do think this opportunity to thank all the women, both the women of our countries who are listening in today and those who are listening on Facebook and continuing onward. This is just the beginning, and let us work as soon as we can, as fast as we can, to take this opportunity forward. I would also like to thank the Flow past presidents who are listening in today, the governing body members of our organization. And I want to especially thank my very active chair of Chennai, Rinku Micheri, who's put this together for us. And thank you, ambassadors, and thank you all. And we look forward to the next step. It's coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you, Brendan. Really means a lot. I know we've taken up a lot more time, but I do hope it's been an enriching session, as Janvi has said. Thank you.
Absolutely. A pleasure.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.